Wow. Wow. Okay. I didn't realize it took me 3 minutes to get in here. I was answering a few emails. I thought I had some time before I walked in here. I didn't realize that I'd gotten a little late. Thank you all for being here this morning. A lot of things have happened since the last time we were here. Some of them certainly have been in the news, and just wanted to recap some of those if you didn't see what was going on. I guess not last Friday, but the Friday before, Pensacola Energy celebrated the completion of a large-scale underground pipeline replacement project that replaced over 80 miles of main in 3 years. And in September of 2019, Pensacola Energy replaced the last of a century-old cast iron piping in the city of Pensacola. So we had cast iron pipe day, and there's you can see one of those valves out there, and it's kind of amazing to realize that those were actually still in the ground out there. But again, now that we've replaced them, it allows us, one, it certainly helps us with safety. It allows us to better provide service to our customers, and it really allows us to be more efficient in what we do for the financial return for the city. So it really, all three areas, it certainly improved everything. Certainly a big thank you to Pensacola Energy and their staff for the hard work on this project to eliminate and replace all the cast iron piping in the system. All of our people, our crews out there at the Pensacola Energy have worked hard. The other thing that has happened over the past week, we certainly had a large Veterans Day last week. We missed everyone, but it was a great parade. Several of you I saw out there and a part of the events that took place. I think Pensacola always looks its best when it is recognizing its military. Certainly we had the opportunity to recognize a number of individuals in both we're certainly Navy, Marines, and Air Force. I will say last week we did have a chance to have the Army in town, and I certainly, Casey and I had a great time being a part of that. I know they jumped on Saturday into the UWF game, but on Friday morning they jumped into a pep rally at Escambia High School, and we had the opportunity to participate with them. It was great to be with the Army. I've already teased Captain Kinsella out there a little bit that now the Army is now they'll have a something up in the mayor's office up there. I said, what's the Navy doing now? But we had a good time. It was a lot of fun. I was impressed. I'm always impressed by the servicemen and women they had, but the people that participated in that group and what they had done, several of them had served in Afghanistan and Iraq, and it was just impressive talking to them about what they had done. And I appreciate them continuing to be out there to recruit. My grandfather and my father were both paratroopers, so for me it was special to be with them on that jump, and it was a lot of fun to be a part of. Also last Friday we had the Salvation Army kicked off their kettle drive. Again, we certainly appreciate they're one of our partners that we continue to work with and deal with, helping us with those individuals who are less fortunate in poverty and homeless issues that we're working with. If you have the opportunity, I know my Rotary Club rings the bell. I'll be ringing the bell at some point at some location between now and Christmas. If you could do that, certainly do that. But if you can't, just anything you can contribute. Certainly, as they say, if it's jingles or foals, they appreciate anything at the Salvation Army, as they are certainly collecting right now. So I was happy to be a part of theirs as well. Their opening port tour. I saw many of you on the port tour. Thank you to everyone who participated. I really appreciate Amy and Clark doing a good job in showing what we're doing out there at the port. I think we've made people aware. We believe the maritime nature of our port and our city is important. We will continue to operate a port. We think we can operate a port and do it successfully in a way that also interacts with the downtown we have. However, that means we've got to be focused on being a niche port and look at those niche areas that are right for Pensacola. And I think we had the opportunity to show you and expose you. I think if you went on the tour and saw it, you're probably amazed at all the different things that we're doing on that port. And all of them are great things and contribute to both creating employment and economic opportunity here in this city, but continuing to take advantage of the assets we have. We may not be Mobile's port or Panama City's port, but we are going to be a port in Pensacola that plays to the niches that are successful for us. So I certainly think that is part of it. And part of that is certainly welcoming back the U.S. Challenger from the New York Yacht Club, the American Magic, that will be here again for this winter. They'll be getting ready for 2021. It's my understanding they will have the big boat here, and so the full size AC-75 boat. So we're very happy to have them back to the port, and I had a chance to see them as a part of the tour and talk with them, and that they're very excited to be back in Pensacola. So we're excited about that. Our annual resident satisfaction survey is now underway through the HOT Center. We are asking all residents to take the time to complete the survey. It's available online at uwf.edu/HOSH resident survey. And you can find that, I'm sure, on our website. Any information, we certainly appreciate your input. All city residents should be receiving a postcard in the mailing prompting them to complete the survey. This survey will give us valuable feedback and data from our citizens we can use to improve our services. Responses are anonymous and all data is kept confidential, and they only report in a combined format rather than reporting individual results. The deadline to complete the survey is Friday, December 13th, so we ask that you, if you get that survey, take the time to fill it out. It really helps us in the delivery of services. Much of what we're doing and reorganizing how we're going internally is dependent upon data, so we need your responses back. That data will drive what we end up doing. So we certainly appreciate your willingness to participate in that. Lastly, I was going to say here, Pensacola Fire Department smoke alarm canvass. On Saturday, Pensacola Fire Department conducted smoke alarm canvass in Woodland Heights neighborhood to install smoke alarms free of charge for residents. During this canvass, firefighters installed 66 smoke alarms in the neighborhood. This area was chosen due to the recent house fires where smoke alarms were not working in the home. If you are a city resident and do not have a working smoke alarm, remember to call the Pensacola Fire Department at 436-5200 for installation assistance. 436-5200. Please call the Pensacola Fire Department and they will be happy to help you. If we can prevent a fire and not ever have to respond to it, I can tell you those gentlemen will be the happiest. Those ladies and gentlemen that work for the fire department will be the happiest that they don't have to come there. So again, anything we can do to help you protect your home, we're happy to do that. They do a great job out there. The fire department is doing a great job, and I really appreciate their willingness to be out there and canvass in Woodland Heights. So that's a good thing. Lastly, I didn't see Derek here today. I wanted to thank him. We had a great lunch for the Public Works luncheon. It was nice to be out there with Public Works. I continue to ask them, what can we do to help you be better about conducting service? And I keep hearing the same things. Just keep working with us, give us more opportunities, and continue to focus on better equipment, which we've done both, and we will continue to do that as we move forward. And then lastly, I did want to recognize Entrecon. I think so much of what we're doing, and certainly Studer Community Institute and putting on Entrecon, continues to get us focused on making sure that Pensacola is the kind of place for small business, small entrepreneurs, how we can make sure we're critical in what we're doing. And we're going to continue to work and improve in that way. I think as we move forward, you will see more economic gardening. We will continue to we'll continue to look for economic opportunities to build companies, but I think you're going to see us certainly concentrate on growing companies, how we can make it for entrepreneurs to be here and then grow those companies. And I think Entrecon was a big part of that, and bringing a focus to it and bringing some really great speakers and conversations to this area. I think it's a big part of it, and we've certainly made some commitments as we're moving forward, looking at how we can continue to make our city more accessible and more agreeable to those entrepreneurs and those companies that they create, what we can do to do that. So these are some of the things that we continue to do, focusing on amenity and attraction. A lot of things we continue to do here at the city. Got a lot of things going forward this week. I do know much of this week I will be out in San Antonio for the League of Cities, but looking forward to participating in that. And Andrew, I see you writing. I think I'm going to be in the air our normal conversation time on Wednesday, so I'm happy to move something else, but I will not be available Wednesday. I'll be flying to San Antonio. Part of while I'm there, I serve on a couple of committees, one of them being the committee that we've been dealing with the presidential campaign. We will meet again there and discuss a little bit more on things that we believe go, certainly across party lines, and show what cities do, whether they are in Republican areas or in Democrat areas, that cities are vital to what's going on in the delivery of services in government, and the importance of local government. So we will continue to do that, and I'm looking forward to be a part of that with several other mayors and council members from across the country. So excited to participate in that this week, and those are just a few things that we have going on in advance of Thanksgiving. We'll have more for you next week, and look forward to discussing at that point. Now, happy to answer your questions. Dave?
Yeah, could you make a comment or two about Baptist Hospital's efforts to annex their future hospital site?
And again, I think we have been happy. If you know where Baptist is located now, as they've grown in that location, if you look at the city limits, you see an odd sort of, it used to be a straight diagonal line, and you see all this odd growth. And over time, they have annexed because they have certainly enjoyed being a part of the city of Pensacola, and we appreciate that relationship that we've had with Baptist Hospital. Obviously, they feel for the future of their mission and where they want to go, they're moving out. It happened to be a location that's currently located outside of the city, but it is adjacent to the city. So we were very glad to hear that they wanted to remain in the city and annex in. We started the first part of that on Thursday. The council voted. We will vote in December for the final vote on that annexation. I think it will be a great opportunity to expand the boundaries of the city of Pensacola and continue our relationship with Baptist Healthcare and Baptist Hospital. Also, I do see Kareth in the room, and I know that he is participating with them. And I think there's some other city staff members. I think Mr. Powell also is dealing with their citizens group as they look at what is going to become of the current campus once the campus moves. And I think I think we have an awesome opportunity to redevelop and re-envision what that is in West Pensacola. Clearly, we would like some health. You've heard that from Ms. Canada Wynn, some health delivery there. But I think obviously we can serve the health needs of the neighborhood without the overall larger campus. How do we look at what that becomes and make it an integral part and an opportunity to you don't get many chances to rework a community and breathe life into a community and help in that area. So I think there's a lot that can be done, and we can see real growth in that portion of West Pensacola. And we would love to see it spur people to think about annexation over there on the west side. But in the meantime, we think we can revitalize and we can do things going forward. I think it's going to be a big part of where the city goes the next 10 years, what happens with that campus over there, and I appreciate their willingness to involve us.
What advantages do businesses or maybe even residents have being annexed into the city?
Certainly it's dealing with, I think the city provides a better level of service, whether it's from our inspections department as you're working through us, our fire, our police, a variety of things. I think the county does an incredible job, but it has an incredible amount of space it has to do, having served in both governments. The city is a smaller area. It has the extra payment. It allows us to do some services and do them more intensely. I think those are services that Baptist appreciates and wanted to continue to integrate into here. And I'm not speaking bad. I don't think it's a comment on the county. It's a comment on what the city does right and why you want to be in a city. And I think those are certainly things we do. For citizens at large, I think there's also Parks and Rec and a variety of things that we can provide extra detail that the county simply due to its size cannot do. And I think those are the things we offer. And I would hope more people would want to annex.
Thank you.
Do they pay property taxes? What is the net?
If
they're gaining services, what I'm just wondering,
they don't.
How does it relate to us in terms of the finances?
Well, two things. One is, obviously, as they move, where they actually operate their hospital, they can do that. But if they don't, they aren't necessarily operating the hospital. It's my belief they do end up paying taxes, which is what's going to happen as they try to transition what happens with the existing campus. I think it provides us, it may not provide us opportunities once they finish building there, But I do think it will continue to find there are other opportunities that they do. They lease space to other doctors' offices. Again, those things that become the normal business part are more open. The part that they're providing their services, those are not necessarily things that we'll be taxed on. But we certainly have had a good relationship with them, and as we look at the existing campuses, they move out. As they move their operations out, there's the chance that obviously more of that falls back on the tax rolls.
But that would have happened regardless of whether the new site got annexed. I'm just trying to, and I just don't know the answer. What is the benefit to the city? Because what I hear is fire inspections and police, but that's a cost to the city for providing services. What's the benefit to the city of incorporating that land into the city?
Well, I think from the city's perspective, having Baptists as a part of the city and continuing to say they're functioning here in the city is a positive part of it. I think at the end of the day, having one of your largest employers and having them located in the city of Pensacola is a good thing for us. I don't think it will tremendously change what we're doing one way or the other, because we were providing those services to their current location. So again, from our standpoint, I don't see it being a tremendous amount of difference to us one way or the other. I think one way we will get is the redevelopment of the old site will come back on the tax rolls, but as we move forward, we think it's a good thing to be a part of. We worked with them. It allows us to continue to implement our ordinance that they included. They did take on, Andrew, some self-taxation in order to be able to grab more money down. If you remember what we did, we worked with them. Them staying in the city limits will allow us to continue to do that work.
So that's a part of that transaction, within the limits?
Remember, they only did it in the city, so it will allow all of that stuff that Baptist has in what they were doing to be a part of that and continue to be able to track down more money for indigent healthcare. I think that's a big part of them wanting to stay in the city and what those opportunities offer. All right, Jeremy.
I was just hoping you might say a bit about the decision to loosen up the tree fund.
I think there was something we wanted to do. It came out of the mayor's transition report that we needed to plant trees and that there was a need across the city. So we began working on that process. We think that we can provide, and I really appreciate Brian, see Brian in the room. There are several places we've met with, as soon as we look at some parks and where we know we're going to be doing replanting, we've been meeting with the Native Plant Society. We made a commitment to them that we were going to plant native plants and we're going to plant a diversity of plants. Certainly everybody loves oak trees. We're going to be planting some oak trees, but we're not going to just plant oak trees. I think the idea is to plant also other species. So again, when we think about the wildlife that lives here, even that migrates through here, that the things that they depend on as they come through will be here, and we're excited about that. I think overall, it just allows us to do things for a while, and I understand why the council did it, because there was tension back and forth. We felt like we needed to present a good plan, but we wanted to be sure we gave some flexibility within districts. There was a lot of comments, if you remember last week, about how we did it. At the end of the day, if those city council members decide they would rather it to go into the neighborhood fund and allow neighborhoods within their area to apply for grant opportunities, we found it a better way to engage neighborhoods as they're moving forward. We think that's a great way if they have actual uses for it and a desire they want to happen in their district, they can do that too. We have council members that are doing both, and we wanted the flexibility to give those council members the ability to work within that. So what we did not feel was appropriate is that we spent a large amount, a huge chunk of it, or dedicated a huge chunk of it to any particular district. We believed that we need to go out with 10,000 to each and begin that process, and then create the fund within the neighborhood fund. And we did sort of recognize the whole issue around the tornado, and we gave an additional 20,000 to District 2. That was something that was fairly important to that district, and That district has been very vocal about some of the things that have happened. So, we're trying to work with everybody.
I have a question about the stormwater. So obviously council approved the ability to bill that eventually, if it ever gets passed, through the tax bill. But I'm trying to wrap my brain around the math of it. Take this many millions of dollars of a stormwater project, divide it by 500 or 1,000 homes. It seems pretty costly per home. What kind of price tag are we looking at for homes if it winds up getting approved?
I think the bigger issue is, from our standpoint, is we're going to bring forward a project. There's any number of ways that project could be funded. Y'all are thinking it's all one way or all another way. It could be a myriad of different sources of funding. One of those sources could be within that area, or whatever we designate as the area within the stormwater fee. I don't believe all of it will be paid through one way or the other, but I think the council will have that option as we bring it forward, and it will be able, at that time, we'll know what are sort of the more knowns of sort of what the costs are going to be. And we can, when we have an actual plan, we know what the cost of building it is. We know, what the area will service and who's all affected by it. We'll have all of those things in there. And at that point, we can be better about figuring out what goes, how it gets paid. But if we didn't take the measures we took last week, we wouldn't have the option to even put it on there. And like I told the council members, y'all may decide as we bring it forward, we're going to bring forward something that's going to have a variety of ways to pay for it. They can decide and say, no, we don't want to pay for it this way, we want to pay for it that way. My feeling was, it's better for us to give you all the options available to you in the front, and then you can make those decisions and whittle it down.
So, two sort of parameters questions. One is, are you imagining these fees to be based on property value, or based on lot space, or based on just per resident? And second, do you have any upper boundary on what you think the impact on individual homeowners might be? I mean, are we talking $100 in a year, or $500 in a year?
At this point, Andrew, we don't have that detail. But before we get to that point, before we bring something that we go to council, we will have all those answers. What we wanted was the opportunity to make decisions and begin to send staff out with all availability to them. We've talked about drainage, we've talked about flooding, we've talked about the need to correct it. We want to correct it, but we also want to correct it and bring something to the council that has everything available to them. And so our goal is just what you said, to minimize the impact on any individual, business, or resident. For me, it was, and I get the point, everybody's like, well, you're going to force it all on. No, that's not the objective. The objective is to give staff and then council the ability to put together a whole package and say, here's what we can do, and minimize the impacts. We can use all these different sources. We can get the funding that we need and be able to bring it forward. Otherwise, the council's got to look and see how they raise millions of dollars. So I think we need to be as flexible as we can. And again, council can make any decisions they want to make on whether we do it or not. I mean, our position is, you've asked us to come up with a plan to address flooding. We're going to do that. Whatever the council ends up choosing to do will be, their response to it, and they will have the freedom to evaluate it and make those decisions. We're trying to take care of flooding. That's what we've been asked to do.
It kind of feels like a pre-approval app on an engagement ring. Like it's a tax that's coming, maybe, and we're just making sure we have the ability to apply this tax if we decide to apply it. So
the tax is there. It's allowed for us to be looked at it one way or another. We will have it when we have it. We have LOST. We have a variety of different other things. I mean, all those things need to be available as we look at it.
I also wanted to ask about the Main Street crosswalks, which I pay a lot of attention to.
Yes.
As I drive through that area, visually it's cluttered. It's hard to see the crosswalks. They're not as vivid as they could be, and there's almost too many of them because it's here and 10 feet more and then 20 feet more. And I know you talked about the hashtag and scape and some of that stuff, but that seems distant. Is there a short-term fix of painting or a median sign or just something that'll get in drivers' field of vision that might make those crosswalks safer?
I do think a couple of things have happened. Since we had the first problems there, and we've put forward some ability, what I've seen is people stopping at Jefferson Street. what I've seen is less likely to stop further down. I believe the street you were crossing on was the Tarragona, what I saw on your.
Competency, I think, was the one
Yeah.
that was on, maybe.
Yeah, you're right. Competency, then Tarragona is the one. But it was Competency is the one you were using on your thing. I've noticed that personally, that I've seen people stopping at Jefferson, and then they don't seem to go from there. So we've obviously got to address that. But we do believe the long-term addressing is going to come from skate. We think in the short term, it may be more cluttered, but we may need to put some signage there at Competencia. I think that's what we're going to try to address at those, you know, in the short term. We will look to do that, but I do think we've seen an improvement. I've seen people stop in both directions better on Jefferson, and overall, I've seen a slowdown in you know, things happening on Main Street overall, and beginning to recognize. I think part of that just takes time for people to realize and change the way they act to things. But I notice people stopping on Balin. I notice people stopping on Jefferson. I don't notice people stopping on Competency. I think they kind of like, they get through Jefferson, they start putting on the gas, and they're thinking about getting up to Bayfront and going. So we may need to do some more signage work there. But I saw your Facebook, and I saw that.
I know the ones like at the Seville or at Bartram Park are very vivid because they're the bricks, and the same at Palafox. You know, they're very vivid, and the other ones, just from my own experience, I drove through there numerous times before I even realized there were crosswalks there. It just is so, it doesn't jump out and grab you is my own thought. So
we you know, seeing Brad here, we may look at Brad repainting or restriping in that area just so it's looking. Our whole point is we didn't want to go do something like it, just tear up the street and do a bunch of money like we did at Seville and Bartram, only to come back with. So I think anything that we do in the interim is going to be probably signage and paint, because we don't want to do anything that's going to dramatically come back and rechange when we do Scape. I think Scape is the long-term plan. The hashtag is the long-term plan for Maine, and I'm looking forward to see what comes back with that. But if there's something we need to do in the short term, it's probably going to be signage and striping. And Brad's back there on his phone right now, so I think we're going to look to address how we can.
Could we go back to trees for a minute? Just, I think Jennifer was wanting some background on the fund itself, and then I guess it has been frozen for a while, kind of the reasoning behind that, the reasoning to loosen up, just a kind of a background on the whole thing.
The tree fund was established through the tree ordinance. In other words, if you end up cutting trees, you're supposed to replant trees. Obviously, at some point, saturating a lot that's going to be developed with more trees just gets to a point where, okay, that's not where the trees all need to go. We need to move them out. So the idea is, okay, then you ought to pay for those trees, and the person ought to put money into the fund. And the trees, the idea of it, and I do understand and appreciate Councilwoman Meyer's point, is the idea is that within basins or areas, we don't want to strip all the trees on one side of town and replant them in another part of town. So the idea was to keep, I think she's a little aggressive in the interpretation that's per district. I don't think it's per district. I think it's per area, and I think there is some more flexibility. But clearly there's a desire to put trees both in the north side and the west side and the east side, so we're trying to make sure we get trees everywhere. That was the purpose of what we did. Now, my understanding is there was some disagreement between the previous administration and the council that led to the freezing. Obviously, our goal has been trying to improve that, create better relationship, and figure out how to get it unfrozen, because there's no doubt in our environmental committee, one of the recommendations that came out of the mayor's transition report was more plantings. Now those plantings were identified on the west side of Pensacola, not in District 2. That further created some conflict, but you know, we like everything else, legislation is compromise, and we work through some things. I realized when you saw the council members up there, it wasn't perfect, but I think we did give council members flexibility to address the needs that they want to do. If they wanted to do it in their district, we can do it in their district. If they want to address it through neighborhoods, we can address it through neighborhoods. And if they want to dedicate their trees to a different area that's not in their district, they're welcome to do that as well. And so we really want to give them the flexibility to be able to do that going forward. But clearly there's some council members that are very passionate about this in their district, and certainly District 2 had a significant amount of damage at one time, and we're going to work and now try to get those trees planted. So, I think the key part of this is Keith says, we only approve spending 20% of what's in the fund. And that will take us probably some time to do it. So there's no doubt that as the things happen and we've seen other development, the fund will continue to accumulate spending for us to go do other stuff. But there's no doubt we believe in the urban canopy. We want to see it continue to truly grow up and be that canopy. But we also, I think some of the things that I think are more important than the tree ordinance is a commitment to stay with native species and a variety of species. And I've been clear on that as we move forward. I think there are places where we want to plant pines. I think there are places where we want to plant other flowering trees. Oak trees are beautiful. I love oaks. But if the truth be told, if we weren't here, if none of us were here, there'd be very few oaks here. And it's just because of the way nature is. And so sometimes people don't want to hear that. They're like, oh my God, you're killing all the oak trees. Well, in actuality, if man wasn't here, there would be no oak trees. It would be mostly longleaf pine, because the fires, as they've done naturally for centuries before man got, before people came here and settled it, the fires would just burn through wildly, and you would not have any oaks. You would have had mostly longleaf pine, and we are losing those longleaf pine stands in place of the oaks and a variety of other things. And I think it's critical when we look at the habitat for the animals we have and the variety of other things. We need a diversity, not just oaks.
2 quick follows. Thanks everybody for indulging me. The total amount in the fund and the total amount being spent, did we say it was?
Total amount's about $500,000.
And
Being spent's about $100,000,
Right.
so 20%.
Just making sure. And the last thing, curiosity, or maybe this has yet to be refined down, once the money is allocated, whether it be neighborhoods or districts, however that's ultimately done, then who makes the decisions within those areas as to what goes where, and within
That will be both, really working within council members, neighborhoods, and then city staff, both within whether it's Parks and Rec or whether it's Public Works, as we look at those things. I think what's important to realize in there too, we are only planning things on public property, and I highly encourage anybody with private property. I built a house. I would say if you want to go 4165, I built that house in 2001. We did not strip we saved some trees, but we tore down a lot of the trees that were there. We did replant, and I think if you go back now, we're almost 20 years later, you would look up and you'd go, golly, I can't believe this place almost was totally, and what little we did save, we lost most of during Ivan. So most of the trees in my house have been replanted. We continue we believe in what trees do. We would encourage people to plant trees on private property, but I can't control. If I planted a tree on a private property and somebody came by and wanted to cut it down, I could not ensure the long-term survivability of that tree, which is why we are trying to plant all the trees within the tree fund in public spaces.
Are you done? Because I had a
Yes,
follow-up on
thank
that.
you, yeah.
No, I just want to make sure I wasn't interrupting.
No, good.
So, when I hear there's $500,000, there was $500,000, $400,000 in the tree fund. I think of that as a missed opportunity because time is canopy. So, what is the hindrance to getting more of that money spent? Is it lack of places to do it? Is it lack of council willing to appropriate the money? Is it what is it? What is it that's been limiting?
I think it's
because we should exhaust that fund and get the trees growing.
I think that's the total intent, but the challenge was between administration and council. What we're trying to do is go through sort of a parameter and prove that we can be successful and be successful in implementation. I think if we're more successful at that, it will breed success and more confidence. But clearly, we're still dealing with some of the legacy of the prior administration and council relationship, and I think this is an attempt in a smaller version to prove that we can make it work. And I think if we are successful, I think it'll be all the easier. But you got to build trust. Trust starts with small things, and once you prove that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, it's easier to build off of that going forward.
Going forward, y'all talked about like short-term plan, long-term plan. What is the long-term plan? Is it going to continue to be a divvy up the money, here's your money, do what you do in your districts? Or are you going to do it by watershed? Or are you going to revise 2013?
I think it will still be in watershed, and I think we'll look at where we can be more viable and impactful. I think it really determines on those opportunities through both Parks and Rec and through Derek where they see opportunities for us to be. again, I think there are plenty of places where we can continue to be successful. I think at this point we needed something that council members felt good about, and they felt that they could trust the administration and the staff. And I think if we do that, in the long term, the long term success will be much easier to work with. I think we'll be wildly successful with this. I do think we'll show where we can be successful. If you look at some of the other places in the past in parks where we've invested in trees, they're coming up. The canopy is, as Andrew says, is coming forward. But you're right, it is time. But again, I think from our standpoint, we want to make sure that we're prepared in the right places and that we've done the right things. And if we've done the right things, it should be easier if we come forward and we come to the hashtag and we want to put some plantings in Bruce Beach. It should be easier to go to the council and say, hey, we'd like to open up the tree fund and plant some of the trees in where we're going here, and not have them question why we want to take it out or what we want to plant.
Will there be a longer term or larger plan developed to where you know exactly where you want to plant and you could spend the rest of the $400,000?
Well, I think exactly where you want to plant is going to evolve over time, because you're going to have losses. You're going to have tree losses which you can't anticipate right now. So I do think there's always something
just
more.
accommodating for like the current landscape.
Yeah. I think that absolutely will happen as we move forward and have some confidence and faith between the council and city staff. I think that's inevitable. I mean, again, I wholeheartedly endorse the plan and getting it moving. I mean, I want to get it moving right now, because we are now stepping into tree planting season. When you come out, I mean, it wasn't worth doing this in the spring and then setting it up because you couldn't plant in the summer, and you don't want to plant trees in the middle of the summer when it's hot and they're not dormant. And the idea was to come back and plant them when they're dormant here in the winter and get some trees planted and moving up.
Last one, I promise. Have any trees been planted since it was frozen in 17 and now?
Well, I think we've planted trees, but we haven't planted them out of the tree trust fund. Yes. So it hasn't been a substantial number. I'm looking at Keith. He's kind of shaking his head. And we have planted a couple of trees. We even planted one for Arbor Day, but that hadn't come out. It hasn't been a substantial number, and it hasn't come out of the tree fund.
And again, that fund is exclusively from trees that were removed.
Correct.
Compensation
Correct.
to fund their replanting or replacement somewhere.
Correct.
We know a lot about it now.
No, thank you.
That's
But it's
helps
really
me.
good. I think that,
Yeah.
I know Jennifer wanted me to do it because people just don't know, around town, they don't know.
And again, I think you saw some discussion, and I think you saw staff and Keith what said both on Tuesday at the agenda review and at Thursday night, said, hey, we still need some comments. And I think you saw comments that we received at both places that were different. Some council members feel very strongly that we just need to go with a plan and go forward. Some council members feel very strong, it needs to be in a district. We tried to give the flexibility in what we gave forward so that we could develop some trust and move forward.
It almost feels like it would be better to have a statute that requires that money to be spent within 60 to 90 days of it being acquired, because it's coming in, should go right back out.
I like it. I think some of it should come out every single year, and we should be planting trees every year. I absolutely agree with you. I do think I think there's wise to hold back some portion of it, only in the event, because you don't know when you're going to have a hurricane or something else. And if you were, and then you had parks that were devastated and you needed the opportunity to replant, you wouldn't have the funding. So I think it's wise to hold some portion of it back, only in the event that you don't know what may happen with a weather event.
But those are kind of two different issues, right? Like the one is replacing the canopy loss because you're doing construction. The other is emergency recovery from a hurricane where nobody's paid. I mean, the businesses building shouldn't necessarily be funding the hurricane recovery. Those seem like different issues to me.
But the overall forest canopy is impacted either way. In fact, I would say from a forest standpoint, 2004 was much more devastating than any of the development that has occurred in the city of Pensacola or Escambia County. The number of trees we lost. I mean, I think look at what happened with Michael and that whole area where they are just devoid of trees if you drive down Interstate 10. And I think it shows what happens when you have a natural disaster. You need to be a little flexible. And so, again, Andrew, it's just differences of opinion. I think some of it does need to be held back, but I think what you ought to be looking at is probably 60 65% of what you collect should be spent in that year, absolutely. And then if you get to a point where you feel like you have a threshold, if you get over that threshold, it's just like the carry forward at the end of the year. Okay, if we get over that threshold and we don't need that reserve, then we just take all the amount in there and we throw it in there and we plant more trees. I mean, I'm totally with you on that, but I think at some point we want to keep a reserve only in the sense that we know weather happens in this area and we can be devastated and need planting again, and I would hate to have it without any funds. Thank you very much. We'll see you next Monday. We have I think Casey, we have a big announcement next Monday, don't we?
Oh.
With